Hello, I am Urpita Bhattacharya, Assistant Professor of English, Swami Vivekananda Institute of Science and Technology. Today my topic is Basics of Technical Communication. I should start from the definition. So communication can be defined as the exchange of information, ideas and knowledge between sender and receiver through an accepted code of symbol. Let me discuss. The word communication has its root in the Latin word communicare, which means to share, and this sharing is of information, knowledge and thoughts. For sharing information, you require two parties, the sender and the receiver, without which communication cannot take place. However, it is not sufficient to have two parties. There should also be cooperation and understanding between them. They should have a mutually accepted code of signals making up common language. So communication can be defined as the exchange of information, ideas, knowledge between sender and receiver through an accepted code of symbols. It is termed effective only when the receiver receives a message intended by the sender in the same perspective. Otherwise, it is miscommunication. So my next point is the process. Here, please consider the communication process as shown in the figure, the communication cycle. So I should start from the sender. The sender encodes the message and sends it through a channel. The channel is nothing but the language used. Words, actions, signs, objects, all a combination of these. The receiver receives the message, decodes it and acts on it. If the message received is the same as the message sent, there will be a response. If not, there has been a breakdown of communication. This may happen because of noise. The reasons for noise production have been discussed in detail in the latter part of the section. The transmission of the receiver's response to the sender is called feedback. Feedback is essential as it is a barometer of effective communication. If you are sending a message to somebody, your communication cycle is complete only when you get a response from the recipient of your message. Otherwise, you need to resend the message. Of course, even if you receive a response, it may or may not be the one you had expected. But once you receive some response, you know that you have communicated your message to the other party successfully. For example, you put up a notice asking the members of your student council to attend a meeting on a specified date at a particular time on the location mentioned on the day of the meeting. You find that some of them have come while the others have not turned up. In this case, you have obtained both the positive and negative responses to your message. But since you have got some feedback, the communication process is complete. Also, it has been effective, at least from your side. Hence, to understand whether you have communicated successfully or not, you must get feedback, which is your observation of the recipient's response. Your communication is fully effective only when you get the desired response from the receiver. Communication takes place in a well-defined setup. This is called communication environment. A classroom is the communication environment when a teacher delivers lectures to the students. So, teacher is the sender and students are the receiver. A teacher's cubicle becomes the communication environment when a student privately approaches the teacher. Messages themselves are transferred through a medium, the channel. In oral communication, the air or telephone wires are commonly used channels. Language is the tool we use through these channels to exchange information. In brief, the essential of the effective communication are, so far we discussed, a common communication environment, cooperation between the sender and the receiver, selection of an appropriate channel, correct encoding and decoding of the message, receipt of the desired response, and feedback. Now, noise. Earlier I promised you that I will discuss on noise. When you communicate, you desire that the message received should be the same as the message sent. But you might notice that this is not always the case. Sometimes this is due to the presence of noise. Noise is defined as any unplanned interference in the communication environment which causes hindrance in the transmission of message. Noise distorts interpretation of the decoding part of the communication process. Next, I want to discuss on general and technical communication. Communication is important not only in an organization but also in daily life. In everyday life, you will find that communication occurs everywhere. It is an integral part of the daily activity. When your alarm clock goes off, it is communication through sound and urges you get out of bed. When you use a particular brand of toothpaste while brushing your teeth, it is because of the impact of the company's persuasive advertising or its salesman's spiel, both being effective forms of communication. You watch the morning news on TV, communication. You say goodbye to your family as you leave home, this is communication. You call for a cab and tell the driver to head for your office, this is communication. At your workplace, all activities revolve around communication, be it oral or written. Your boss calls to tell you about your increment, this is communication again. At the end of the day, you return home and read the newspaper, this is communication once more. So these are the ample examples of communication. Finally, you retire to bed and dream, this is also communication, this time with yourself. Messages that are non-technical or informal in nature are categorized as general purpose communication, whereas messages pertaining to technical, industrial or business matters belong to category of technical or business communication. So if I try to differentiate between these two, I should start from the general communication. It contains a general message, information in style, informal in style and approach, no set pattern of communication, mostly oral, not always for a specific audience, doesn't involve the use of technical vocabulary or graphics, etc. On the other hand, in case of technical communication, which contains a technical message, mostly formal, follows a set pattern, both oral and written, always for a specific audience, frequently involves jargon, graphics, etc. Now, so language as a tool of communication. Language employs a combination of words to communicate ideas in a meaningful way. By changing the word order in a sentence, you can change the meaning and even make it meaningless. So according to the ideas put forward by eminent linguists such as Noam Chomsky and Ferdinand de Saussure, language is artificial, restricted, abstract, arbitrary, creative, redundant, recursive. So these are the characteristics of language. And now my point is, what are the levels of communication? Just keep it in your mind, the names particularly: extrapersonal, intrapersonal, interpersonal, organizational and mass communication. Now I'm going to discuss on the flow of communication. Information flows in an organization both formally and informally. The term formal communication refers to communication that follows the official hierarchy and is required to do one's job. In other words, it flows through formal channels. The main lines of organizational communication, internal, operational, and external operational communication, can be described as formal. In fact, the bulk of communication that a business needs in order to operate flows through these channels. For example, when a manager instructs a subordinates or some matter, or when an employee brings a problem to a supervisor's attention, the act of communication is formal. Similarly, when two employees interact to discuss a customer's order, there is a formal communication. Informal information of various kinds flowing through formal channels such as policy or procedural changes, orders, instructions, confidential reports, etc. is classified as formal communication. This type of communication can flow in various directions: downward, upward, lateral, or diagonal. Let's start with downward communication. Downward communication flows from a manager down the chain of command. When managers inform, instruct, advise, or request their subordinates, the communication flows in a downward pattern. This is generally used to convey routine information, new policies or procedures, to seek clarification, to ask for an analysis, etc. Also, superiors send feedback about their subordinates' action through this channel. Such communication increases awareness about the organization among subordinates and employees and enables manager to evaluate the performance of their subordinates. So, downward communication can take any form: memos, notices, face-to-face interactions, or telephonic conversation. Next communication is upward. When subordinates send reports to inform their superiors or to present their findings and recommendations, the communication flows upward. This type of communication keeps managers aware of how employees feel about their jobs, colleagues, and the organization in general. Managers also rely on upward communication for making certain decisions or solving some problems which concern the organization. The extent of upward communication, especially that which is initiated from at the lowest level, depends on the organization culture. In an open culture without too many hierarchical levels, managers are able to create a climate of trust and respect and implement participative decision making or empowerment. Here there will be considerable upward communication. Next point is lateral or horizontal communication. This form of communication takes place among peer groups or hierarchical equivalent employees. Such communication is often necessary to facilitate coordination, save time, bridge the communication gap among various departments. Occasionally, these lateral relationships are formally sanctioned, but generally they are informally created to bypass the formal hierarchical channels and expedite action. From the organization's point of view, lateral communication can be either advantageous or disadvantageous as compared to vertical, means downward or upward communication, which can at times impede and delay timely and accurate transfer of information. Lateral communication can be beneficial. Nevertheless, they can also create conflicts when formal vertical channels are bypassed by employees in order to accomplish their goals, or when superiors find out that they had not been consulted before certain decisions were taken. So our last point is diagonal or crosswise communication. Diagonal or crosswise communication flows in all directions and cuts across functions and levels in an organization. For example, when a sales manager communicates directly with the vice president, who is not only in a different division but also at a higher level in the organization, they are engaged in diagonal communication. Though this form of communication deviates from the normal chain of command, there is no doubt that it is quick and efficient. In some situations, ignoring vertical and horizontal channels expedites action and prevents other employees from being used merely as conduits between senders and receivers. The increased use of email also encourages crosswise communication. Any employee can communicate via email with another employee regardless of the receiver's function or status. Since there is no specific line of command, diagonal communication is also referred to as crosswise, radial or circular communication depending upon the structure of the organization. For instance, a managing director could directly call a supervisor and give instruction. So after the flow of communication, I am going to discuss on the importance of technical communication. Technical communication plays a pivotal role in an organization. Whether it is a business enterprise, an industry, or an academic institution, all managerial or administrative activities involve communication, be it planning, organizing, recruiting, coordinating, or decision making. When you write reports, give instructions, or read brochures and manuals, you are involved in the process of communication. Communication serves as an instrument to measure the success or growth of an organization. For example, papers published by research and development organizations bring to light their progress. The success of any organization is largely organized by the quality and quantity of information flowing through its personnel. When the CEO of an organization presents his company's achievements in a meeting, each of the participants comes to know of these milestones. The various types of communication not only help an organization to grow, but also enable the communicators to develop certain attributes. Sadly, though most professionals are well aware of the importance of communication, they do not develop their skills to good effect in the sphere of work. The higher your position, greater is your need to communicate. A laborer, for example, may not be as involved in communication as a top-level executive. The more you participate in the communication process, the better you develop your skills in collecting and organizing information, analyzing and evaluating facts, appreciating the difference between facts and inferences, and communicating effectively. If you wish to become an effective communicator, you need to communicate, and communicate. There is no other way out. Technical communication in an organization can be divided into two parts, oral and written. Both are equally important, as it cannot be specified which of these is used more in an organization. Some forms of oral and written communication in an organization we can summarize like oral forms: face-to-face conversation, telephonic conversation, meetings, seminars, conferences, dictation, instructions, presentations, group discussion, interviews, video conferences, voice conferences, etc. What are the written forms? Memos, letters, emails, faxes, notices, circulars, newsletters, reports, proposals, research papers, bulletins, brochures, manuals, in-house journals, etc. It is not necessary that all these forms of communication should exist in an organization. If the organization is very large, for example, a university with various affiliated institutions, or a business enterprise with branches across the nation and abroad, it may have all these forms of communication, whereas a smaller educational institution or business may not have all of them. However, an organization becomes an organized whole because of its communication. It is this communication which enables employees to work together. It is the vehicle through which management performs all its functions. It is impossible for an organization to survive without communication, for all its activities would come to stand still. Therefore, its importance can never be ignored.